and welcome to Kikao, your weekly guide on Africa's agriculture. My name is Joe Ageyo. Now this week we focus on technology. Just what's the state of its deployment in agriculture on the continent, and just how can it be used to transform the sector? In a moment we'll be having that full discussion. But first, let me set the scene for you.
We need to involve the total value chain. From the consumer, that's the one person we tend to forget along the chain, because we need to know what are we resolving for the consumer. We need to include the policymaker. Obviously, the policymaker has always been in the middle of it, but the policymaker needs to understand what policies they need to make to address the challenges that the farmers are making.
All right, let's now join Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of AATF, for a detailed conversation on the place of technology in Africa's agriculture.
A good performing farm economy can be an instrument for achieving sustained economic transformation. In Africa, consensus is now building among national, regional and international organizations that agriculture will be the key driver in achieving the continent's desired economic transformation. Leadership across the continent is also now accepting that science, technology and innovation for agricultural transformation are essential for any advancement. This is because agricultural growth was the precursor to industrial growth in Europe, and more recently through the Green Revolution in large parts of Asia and Latin America. In this edition of Kikao, we examine how the use of technology can lead to agricultural transformation on the continent. I'm your host, Dr. Canisius Kanangire, Executive Director of AATF, and my guest today is Dr. George Bigirwa, Deputy Vice President for our Program Innovations and Delivery at Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. You're welcome, sir. Tell me, what role does agricultural technology play in the quest of transforming agriculture on this continent?
You see, we are living in an era where everything has been transformed from various angles. We have seen transformation in transport. People used to take days, months to reach a destination. Now that has been reduced to just hours or minutes. We have seen transformation in technology. We are talking about emails. People used to write letters, use post office, and again people would take months to receive those mail. We have seen, we are talking about, we have seen transformation taking place even in mining. People used to collect samples, take months analyzing them, but now they're just using remote sensing. So agricultural transformation, or agriculture in general, has not been left behind. And we believe if we adopt some of those principles of transformation, that will go a long way really to bring about change, desired change, which will put this continent on the right path. And I believe farmers will begin to embrace the new technologies, and that will go a long way to enable them, increase crop productivity, have better yields, and at the end of the day...
The seed systems in Africa today is a critical ingredient for that transformation that we are working for.
It all starts with the way that seed is developed. There has been a lot of transformation in terms of developing varieties. The scientists in their labs, in their research institutes, they have transformed way of developing these varieties using modern tools. In the past, it would take about maybe 8 to 10 years to develop a variety and have it released. But with the new technology, it is now possible to reduce that period. And therefore, that has led to development of use of climate change. And therefore, we need varieties and withstand some of those challenges. We can start by really having a good seed system in place. And at AGRA, we really put a lot of emphasis on seed because we know that's the starting point. And if you've got a good seed system in place, then the rest will fall in place.
How do we ensure that we have those research products getting out of the lab to the farmers?
Absolutely. That is a reflection of a broken seed system. In most of our countries, our seed systems are dysfunctional. So what is needed is really to make sure that all those components of the seed system are functional, right from research. In fact, we consider about 8 key components in a functional seed system. And those are the things under the Center of Excellence for Seed Systems in AGRA we are going to focus on and strengthen so that seed system in any given country is functional. Right from research, variety development, maintenance and release. The next component is production of early generation seed, because the moment you develop those varieties, you need a component where you'll be able to produce the first stock of that seed.
Yes.
And then from there, that seed can be now pushed to another level of commercial seed production. No. So that's the reason why some of them are continuing to use home-saved seed or old varieties, and yet we've got very many new varieties on the market. So there is a need to put in place deliberate efforts to create that awareness. How can you do that? There are many ways of creating awareness so that farmers can begin to demand, they can be exposed to those new technologies, they can be exposed to those new varieties, and then eventually they would begin to grow them. And one approach is really setting up demonstrations.
Demonstration.
Yeah, seeing is believing. So unless farmers are able to see the performance of those varieties, especially in their own localities, then they can begin to appreciate, and if they are really convinced, next time they will go demanding for seed of those varieties.
Let's take a break, and when we come, we'll look at the role. Welcome to Kikao. George, you said in the previous session that seed is produced with a number of traits that we need. But then, on the other side, the farmer is sure that seed technology is effectively deployed to the farmers.
As far as seed is concerned, we need to put a mechanism in place, number one, to produce seed of those varieties. Now, the question is, do we have enough seed production capacity in different countries? Do we have seed companies which can produce seed of those desired varieties? In most cases, in our countries, the capacity is very low. And so we should put in place mechanisms to establish and strengthen seed companies that can produce seed of those varieties. That's number one. Number two, we need a distribution mechanism. Because once seed is produced, how do farmers now access that seed? Can they, we need a mechanism in place, and one of them is to establish agro-dealers, a network of agro-dealers, who will get this seed from the seed producers, like seed companies, bring it into the rural areas, so that farmers now can easily access seed of those varieties. In 2007, farmers were walking almost 30 kilometers to the nearest point where they can access it. But through partnership with other institutions, including AGRA and even yours, ATF, that distance has been reduced. A study carried out last year showed that that distance has reduced from 30 kilometers to 8.3 by last year. So that shows that at least farmers are now in position to access inputs, including seed. So that's one, that's a second. So do we have strong national seed regulatory agencies to ensure that what is being produced, what is being marketed, meets the requirements, is good quality seed?
Yes.
So we need also to strengthen the national seed regulatory agencies to oversee the operations of different seed activities.
How do you evaluate South-South partnership. And what can we do to have that partnership really reducing or bridging the gaps that we currently have in the seed system and have effective seed systems which will ensure that transformation.
But most of these initiatives are uncoordinated. There's a need to have coordination so that we're able to know who is doing what where, how, with who. And that's the one reason why, as AGRA, it was felt that we establish a go-to institution, which we are calling Center of Excellence for Seed Systems in Africa, whose role will be, one, to coordinate seed activities in Africa. Number two, to ensure that there is a mechanism of really getting hard data, which evidence can be used now to make decisions. And by so doing, you will be able to know who is doing what in what area. And then that will help now for these partners to come together, have a common agenda, and organize themselves so that really, if we really work together, we'll be able to achieve a lot.
That is great. I think the initiative of putting in place a center of excellence is a great initiative, because then indeed it will start that coordination that we need. We can't work together if we don't know each other and what we are doing and the value of what I do to what you are doing. And I think we need to really work very, very diligently to that, because absolutely we have a key role to play. And unless we succeed with the seed system, we will not be able to transform the agricultural sector in Africa and be able to increase productivity and move confidently to farmers. On the other hand, agro dealers and other players in the middle there, a whole chain of players in the seed system. But we have not touched one. I think we will take a short break, and when we come back, we will see the role of policymakers. Welcome back to Kikao. George, we talked about many players in transforming the seed system, but is the policy environment conducive for that change that we need in the seed system, in transformation of agricultural sector?
Talking about policy, that leads us to the role of governments, the public institutions. And governments have got a major role to play in the seed subsector. If the policies are right, then that will be private, farmers. And even when we talk about private sector, it's very broad. You have the seed producers, you have those doing the distribution, you have those who are doing processing, you have those who are doing marketing, name it. But government is very, very important. And in some countries, you have policies which really discourage investors in the seed system. So there is a need to work with governments to have policy reforms which are conducive to enable people or business thrive. For instance, if the policies in a given country are such that to release a variety takes years, or if you go into some countries and there are no PVPs, Plant Variety Protection Acts, some of those policies are put in place. In some countries, it is even difficult to access public varieties. And yet we know most of these producers, the private seed companies, they don't have a strong research and development program, so they depend on public varieties. So if policies are not allowing private sector to access those public varieties, then it becomes also very difficult.
Very difficult.
In some countries, policies don't allow private companies to produce early generation seed of public varieties. So again, you need to have mechanisms in place which allow or enabling policies for such a kind of things to happen. So policy is very, very important. It can ease and make the seed systems work, or If the policies are not right, that can also policies which are favorable and business friendly.
Where do you see agricultural transformation emphasizing the element of seed as part of the conveying of that technology to the farmer? How do you see that kind of portrayed in 10 years, 20 years to come?
I think it begins with the commitments from our governments, really to give priority to agriculture. If they can honor their commitment as they did pledge during the Maputo Declaration, of spending 10% of their national budget on agriculture, I think that would be the right way to go. Yes. And if they can further go down and apportion certain amount to research, certain amount to, sizable amount to seed, then about strengthening seed systems as an approach really to increase agricultural productivity. Let's also appreciate the efforts governments have done. In the past, governments were involved in all aspects of seed. They were producing seed. Each country had a national seed company, producing seed, multiplying, marketing, and whatever. But that is a business enterprise. And you know very well governments are never good at doing business. But as we speak now, most governments pulled back. They left that to the private sector. And all they need to do is really to put, as we said, the right policy environment for the private sector to thrive so that they can begin to drive this. Governments can only play an oversight role by making sure that the policies are right, and by so doing, there will be a lot of investment in agriculture.
So if the government does a bit more in the areas that you specified, agricultural transformation can be a reality in the next 10, 20 years. I think in this Kikao, we have learned a lot from Dr. George Bigirwa. The first thing is that we need to invest more in go from climate change to pests and diseases, and even the level of productivity of the varieties that we have. That is first. But varieties which are produced by research and development centers need to reach the farmer. And this calls upon a number of key players, including first the seed companies, which need to be strengthened because currently the capacity that they have is not enough to produce quality seed that the farmers need. And then the seed need to be closer to the farmer, which means, again, that we need to be able to have a quality of the seed which goes to the farmer. And that is another element which currently need to be strengthened. We need to have many players contributing to making the challenges known, but also communicating the importance of having selected and improved seed to the farmers so that demand can be there for improved seeds. Policymakers have a role to play, not only in funding, but also in putting conducive environment which will enable each of the players to play its role in an effective way. I think that is very important if we want to transform, be used and accessible to the farmers. I want to thank you, George, for your contribution to letting this understood by our followers, agricultural players in different elements, section of the value chain. I want to thank you, followers, viewers, for having followed this Kikao. And I'm again glad to invite you to the next session of Kikao.
And now to our science terminology of the week on Science Speak. And the terminology for this week is biome. Now, a biome refers to a large of biomes would include desert, savanna, woodland, tropical rainforest, etc. Technology to the rescue, they say, and that is the opportunity for Africa to transform its agriculture. Until next time, thank you for watching Kikao. My name is Joe Agayo.